Hi again, everyone. Welcome to the Panarmenian Network State's webinar series, webinar number 2, Network States and New Countries. And the second topic is land acquisition. The first, webinar was kind of an introductory webinar, what the network states and new countries concepts are. And now we have decided, to continue with the most acute, maybe one of the most acute, one of the most important, topics, the land issue, because in the end of the day, no matter how, successful your community is, in the end of the day, you need to, to build something on ground. So that's why we consider the land issue pressing, vehement challenge, a pressing issue, and of course full of opportunities. That's why we are organizing this webinar, the second webinar today, and I am very happy to host our distinguished speakers, guests. So before introducing them, just want to let you know that each speaker will have 10 minutes, to talk about, his views, his concept, his experience and trajectory. What he or she has been doing, with the land acquisition topic. And after the speakers, finish their presentations talk, we will have a questions and answer, session. So actually, I'm very, I have been thinking actually, who to invite into this, very pressing, as I said, discussion on this topic. And in the end of the day, we actually came up with an idea of inviting 3 very interesting people. So the first speaker is Vít Jedlička from the Liberland, the president of Liberland, who has been in the field for many years and has been working, on the land issue and how to bring this land, on ground experience into international recognition. With, of course, will talk about the Liberland and about the diplomatic recognition process. I'm sure. So the second speaker is Andrew Starr, one of the most prominent network state new countries concept guy who I have ever met. Andrew is the actually founder, owner of the Country Founders Telegram group, and he has been active in the field for many years. And the third speaker is Boris Reitman from Crosspass Encryption app, and Boris is based in Canada, and Boris has been doing very interesting initiatives, has been running very interesting initiatives, and is working on some interesting concepts right now. So welcome, thanks a lot for accepting the invitation to speak today in this webinar. So before giving the floor to Vít, I would like just to remind that there is an opportunity of presentation. If so, any speaker wants to present something, so they can do it. Using the share screen option, and everyone else will be muted once the speaker is delivering his speech. So yeah, and the questions will be taken after the speeches. So in the second part of the webinar. Before giving the floor, as I said, want to remind you all again that this is just the second webinar, and we are going to have new webinars. It's a series, and the third webinar will be about the network state identities and ideology, but that's next month. So let's again welcome everyone, and especially our speakers. And Vít, floor is yours. Ophelia, please unmute Vít so Vít can start his speech. Thank you, and I wish everyone a very interesting discussion.
Amazing, Vahram. It's great to be with you, and I'm excited that we've got some other ideas that we're developing together right now as well. I'm just gonna try to share the screen. I would like to share you the presentation, if possible. If you can grant me the access to that, it would be great, actually. And right now we are in very interesting situation with the land. We are starting another round of construction in Liberland, and I'm here actually in Tulum, Mexico, and I'm talking with the architects from Azulik, which is, I would say, the most beautiful stuff that you can find on the planet is what they're doing here in Azulik. They're working on organic architecture, which is beyond imagination. And right now they are actually expanding. They're making, after they made 2 museums here in Tulum and 1 big resort, and actually treehouse resort, which is what I'm looking for right now for Liberland, because it solves our problem with the flooding. We also have to build on stilts. So we spent 2 days in Azulik, and I had the last round of negotiation with the architects for a general urban plan for the Liberty Island as well, for the more specific treehouse project, which is, I would say, a key project this year for Liberland. We are running multiple things in parallel, but the construction actually starts next week. And if I will try if I can share my screen now. Well, but the matter of the fact is that I can actually also tell you quite a lot of things without a presentation. The territory of Liberland is beautiful. It's 7 square kilometers big. It was very special, unique opportunity to claim a piece of land that was unclaimed by any other country. It is a heart-shaped territory with 1 kilometer long sandy beach in the front, especially the sandy beaches on Liberty Island are nice, but also in Marina, which I was very surprised how beautiful they're in the north part of Liberland. So once you will be able to share the screen, we can look at that again. And the legal situation is very interesting. Croatia has never accepted the territory that Serbia rejected after the dissolution of Yugoslavia. So there is no sovereign and no private owner of the territory itself, which gives us a great opportunity, or gave us great opportunity to claim the land 9 years ago by sticking the flag. And it took us 8 years of hard work to get to the situation where we were able to settle, and that's what we did on 6th of August 2023. We managed to settle Liberland and start developing it. And we were, of course, expecting setbacks with our neighbors, but we were able to go through all of the big issues and really find out the way that we can start again a proper expansion. And we are now at the stage when people are moving to Liberland to start building next week. So very exciting time. Also in parallel, we have launched our ecosystem of our cryptocurrency and our governance. So we've got a 2 tokens ecosystem, in which one is the currency and the other one is the share of the country, which is directly backed by the land. Maybe you can just click on those screens one by one without going full screen. The technology is not with us today, I guess. But so this is Liberland, heart-shaped territory, beautiful space on the Danube River with the beautiful long sandy beach on the Liberty Island. And Liberty Island is very special piece of Liberland because it has been not registered for maintenance with Croatian forests. That's why we are also out of touch of the Croatian forestry over there, unlike in the rest of Liberland, where Croatian forest company somehow doesn't have the title, says that the land or the forest itself is owned by unknown private owner, which of course is Liberland, but they claim that they have the right to maintain it, and that maintenance comes with a bunch of raids that they already did on us in September. So we are behind that right now. We are working on improving the diplomatic relations with Croatia. So let's just click through the slides one by one, and we can go through it. Yeah, next one.
The third
Yes.
one, Philip.
Yeah, third one is the fact that we've got out 735,000 people that applied for citizenship, which is a fairly big community, and we have some of the best architects already that help us to give us basically the urban plan for the development of Liberland, which I'm quite excited and grateful for. Zahari architects are the most renowned architectural studio, or at least top 3 in the world, the most cited by the media. So it's great to have that company on board with the development of the territory itself. So let's go to the next slide. So what we really right now are in a good condition. We fulfill all the Montevideo criteria. We have permanent population. We're gaining more and more control over this territory as well. The territory is well defined. It's defined to the degree of centimeters. We've got government, which is the most advanced form of governance that currently humanity now knows. We're building it as a DAO and doing it based on the best ideas from both democracy, republic, as well as meritocracy or corporation, if you want. And we are also able to enter into relations with other states. We have proven that consistently over the last couple of years. We actually signed multiple agreements with other nation states. I'm heading right now to Argentina for the inauguration of Congress for official visit. So we are quite far off in the diplomatic world as well, and we fulfill all the Montevideo criteria. Next slide. Yes, I already mentioned a bit, but we got some inspiration also from Switzerland with the direct democracy. So any law that has been set by Congress can be vetoed by the democratic element in Liberland, which is the public veto. We've got a really interesting parts of our constitution allow other, let's say, network states or orders to claim piece of sovereignty in a similar way like in Liechtenstein. And we have a meritocracy element that we have also partially taken from Singapore. So those are the great examples of what works. We want to build on it. We want to make it even better. And of course, we honor the legacy of American Revolution and the founding father of the United States. Thomas Jefferson has been a great example. And that's why we founded the country on 13th of April on his birthday. So some of the media call us the single most ideological empowered nation on the planet since the Roman Empire, which I kind of appreciate. But yes, we really try to go to the limit, maximize the economic freedom, minimize the state, make a rule of law and very good system of registry, so there will be as little disputes as possible. We're in the process of finalizing our court system on blockchain, which is very exciting. Next slide, please.
Vít, just reminding that 10 minutes is fulfilled, but please, just 3 more minutes, and then we continue, okay?
Yes,
because
yes,
we had
yes.
a problem with technology. 3 more minutes, it's okay.
Sure. Excellent. So we've got the system of Liberland merits, and those are the shares of Liberland. You can vote with them. That's the main thing. It also is directly tied to the land. So the settlers that are coming and have merits can claim a piece of land. Then the next slide is that we have a system of Liberland governance, which is mainly the Congress. It's elected every 3 months, and anybody can decide to use their merits however they want. So they can even remove the support from their congressman at any second, which is, I think, also quite modern. On the next slide, we have a little bit of information about Liberland Senate, which is invitation-only corporation. It's kind of House of Lords, but it only has the control role. It doesn't have any executive role, but it's important part of the ecosystem as well. Next slide. Then there is 70 million merits, which I think is quite important because they represent 7 million square meters of the land. So every 10 merits is 1 square meter, and we are only releasing 10% of what is left. So we will never run out of merits. We will always have something to give to the people that contribute to the Liberland. And some people don't like it, but I keep on repeating it. But we've got a system of voluntary taxes. As much as you want to pay, you pay it, and you always get something in return, unlike in other countries where you pay taxes and nobody even says thank you. Next slide, please. And we've got Liberland Dollar, a very important part of the ecosystem. It's kind of operational token on which all the gas fee, storage fee, the smart contracts are being built on. There is only 3 million of them. They were airdropped to existing Liberland merit holders partially, and partially they're held in reserves, and they are now being traded on multiple exchanges, which I'm very excited about. Exciting days for Liberland. So if you go to next slide, there is a little bit more information about the tokenomics of that token. And if you go to next slide, there is more information about the listing, which happened actually a couple of days ago on CoinStore, yet another exchange. And then there is quite a few pictures, if we can just go quickly through them. So I fulfilled the limit. We've got diplomatic offices in EU, United States. We have done a diplomatic deals in India. I met the president of Croatia, Zoran Milanovic, in the summer. We had quite a few interesting conversation there. We have our office or our resort right next to Liberland. It's called the Ark Village in Serbia. We've got a base in Croatia called Liber Base, which is very important for us logistically. We have a bunch of houseboats in Liberland. This is how we opened the borders, started to build marina, see how many boats we have there. It's kind of exciting. We have a building in the center of Liberland that we are refurbishing. We have settlers on Liberty Island. We have some plans that we're immediately executing actually next week for the construction, and some bigger plans what we want to build in Liberland, like the Liberland Hotel that is for the rest of the summer. And we already had a bunch of cultural events like a wedding in Liberland territory. We have a festival, and we have a bunch of events that you can join, namely the anniversary on 13th of April, but also there is archaeological week, there is marathon week in the coming week. So a lot of exciting things, and it's fairly easy to become citizen or e-resident. It takes 5 minutes to go through the process. You can become a resident for $150, or if you buy a little bit more Liberland shares, you become a shareholder and a citizen of the country. So thank you very much. That's it from me.
Thanks a lot, Vít. Thanks a lot for the insightful presentation. Andy Starr is the next speaker. Andy, please, stage is yours. Please share with us, what you have been up to, and your, very insightful and experience share with us. So we are eager to learn from you a lot. Thank you.
Certainly, it's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you, Vahram, for doing this. This is Andrew J. Starr. For those that don't know me, my personal homepage is Starr, STARR.MC, Michael Charles. And I did fund a few months ago Country Founders, countryfounders.com. It's a simple, informal, ad hoc, casual discussion group on Telegram for those that have an interest in building up brand new startup countries. And so there's much discussion about what form these new countries could take. Some people want to go to the sea. Other people want to stick to cyberspace. Some people have considered colonizing outer space. And of course, there is what I consider to be the gold standard, and that is land, which brings us to this particular webinar. Now, just so you understand, I'm a very casual, informal person for the most part. I'm doing all of this. I have no notes. This is extemporaneous, as they say. So where did I get started with all of this craziness? Although it's not so crazy, and I'll explain. Ever since I was a young boy, I would collect coins and stamps, and I would pore over reference books. And one of the things that you notice is that why are some countries wealthier than others, right? The classic example that I like to use is Burkina Faso and Belgium. I used to pore over something called the World Almanac, and I would look at these two examples, right? Because they both start with the letter B in the English language, and even in their French languages. And I would say to myself, well, what are the differences? These are both multi-ethnic countries. They were both colonized, right? The Spanish had the Spanish Netherlands. The French were in West Africa. And you start to try to ascertain what could it be. Governance, for sure, is right at the top of the list. Back then, I didn't quite refer to it as governance. I thought in terms of management. It's just not as well managed as Belgium, okay? And so this started to spur ideas in my mind. And what happened was, as you know, there's only about, at that time, there was only maybe about 180 countries. I think we're up to around 200 now. And so what had happened was I started to, like lots of young people, have a very fertile, imaginative mind. And I started to invent countries. Because, you know, you run out of them. So just like when you collect comic books, you run out of characters, so you start to invent your own. Some young people would have imaginary friends. Well, I would have imaginary countries, okay? And so fast forward a little bit, you get to be older, you get to be a teenager. You think that you grow out of these things. Yes and no. Yes and no. Some people turn these things into a career. Some people become baseball players, football players. Some people become fiction writers. Other people go and they read The Economist magazine. And I would love to read The Economist magazine for the classified section. And in the classified section, there was an ad from an outlet called Laissez-Faire City. And Laissez-Faire City, back in the 1990s, had published a black and white ad in The Economist magazine, and they were searching for what? For land. They weren't looking to broker some kind of a deal on the sea. They weren't looking to create some kind of a cyber country. They were looking for land. They were looking for a deal from a government, a recognized government, a member of the United Nations, to be particular. However we feel about the United Nations, they are still the international body of record and of note. They are the club. Whether we like it or not, it doesn't matter. They are the club. Ever since 45, they are the club. Before that, one could argue the League of Nations was, although the United States, of course, did not formally join that body. So Laissez-Faire City, as it turns out, did get contacted by governments. They got contacted by Peru in South America, Costa Rica, and a few others. So I followed what happened to Laissez-Faire City, and there were other attempts like Las Portatas. There was also a friend of mine, a gentleman by the name of Rigoberto, who had a project in Costa Rica's Caribbean coast, the Limon Real project, although he wasn't quite going for full independence and full autonomy. So this is where things become real interesting real fast, right? So what I've noticed, fast forwarding, because we got to fast forward, we're limited by time. Fast forwarding, I noticed a few years ago that there's this whole movement toward building charter cities, right? The famous Paul Romer speech. There were several attempts previously in Honduras. And then, of course, more recently, the Zetis in Honduras, the famous one being Prospera, and then, of course, Morazan. And there are some other lesser known ones in Honduras. So we have special economic zones, charter cities that have obtained deals from recognized governments, and they have created these cities, or they've attempted to try and create cities and special economic zones with a mixed degree of success. But what they don't have is full independence, full autonomy. As another panelist who will be following me has pointed out, Mr. Boris, in my opinion, a genius, they don't have control over their immigration and customs. They don't. That's the problem with the Prospera. That's the problem with the Morazan. As much as I love them and I support them, and I've written countless articles on LinkedIn that have had thousands and thousands of views, tens of thousands of views, that they lack that. Now, okay, so what I noticed is that there's an underbelly, and I don't mean this in a pejorative sense, there's an underbelly among those in the special economic zone movement. There's an underbelly among those that want to create new cities. If you scratch the surface, you find out that what they really want is to set up their own countries. And just for whatever reason, maybe they're too timid to say it publicly. Maybe they don't think it's feasible. Maybe they think, oh, It'll just never happen. So they start to negotiate against themselves. They start to settle for second best. Could you imagine being an athlete and training to get the silver medal at the Olympics? What kind of a person would you be? I'm an athlete. I'm training for that gold. I want that gold medal. I'm going to get that gold medal. Okay, that's the right mentality in my view, which brings us to land. Okay, well, what about the sea? What about cyberspace? There's a gentleman in Malta, a German gentleman, Danny, who talks up about how, well, you shouldn't go for land first. He may have a point. Maybe he's more sane and rational than any of us on this panel. It could be. So he proposes that, oh, well, people should be nodes, right? N-O-D-S. Every human being should be a node. And if we're all node operators, we're going to have this sort of critical mass and this swarm theory. And that is the way a sort of Internet 2.0, or other people, not Danny, theorized that, well, Bitcoin is the ultimate network. And that could very well be. And that could very well be. But we still got to live somewhere. And okay, there's the World, which is a cruise ship that sails around the world that some people live in full time. But for the most part, most of humanity is still here on planet Earth, and we're still on dry land. And that's why still to this day, I'm a proponent of acquiring through peaceful, legal means land, clean deals. So that brings us to things such as strategies. How do you do this? Do you go to Mary Bird Land in West Antarctica and claim some unclaimed territory? Of course, there have been dozens of teenagers and websites that have claimed morsels of West Antarctica over the years. So what? They don't have, anybody can claim anything. I can claim the Brooklyn Bridge. It doesn't mean that it belongs to me unless I'm able to defend that claim through force if necessary. Well, that gets to be dangerous. Not sure I have the stomach for that. Or I have some kind of title. And that's where things get to be real tricky, real fast. It's what, and among the many reasons why I'm not in Mary Bird Land, West Antarctica today is A, it's cold, it's far, it's logistically tough. Again, it's really cold, and I'm not really into the cold. The previous panelist mentioned being in Tulum. One of my homes is in Merida, Mexico, about 4 hours to the west of there, and I like it hot. I like it hot. My idea of camping is 5 stars. It's not getting a tent. Maybe that makes me a snob. Maybe that makes me a princess. I don't know. But that's not my idea of a good time. I respect people that have the gumption, the tenacity to go out there as settlers, as pioneers. I have a tremendous amount of respect for that. But there is also the old expression, though, that the pioneers, the adventurers, they were the ones that got the slings and arrows. They were the ones that were getting shot at, but it was the settlers that came after them that got the land. So sometimes being a first mover. Yes.
Sorry for interrupting. Yeah, could you yes, just sum up?
No, that's fine. So to sum up, I feel that still, even in 2024, the answer is land, L-A-N-D, and how to get it through peaceful, legal means, for many reasons that we'll go into later. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Andy. Thanks a lot. And the next speaker is Boris. Boris, please. I mean, stage is yours. If you have anything to present, just, let Ophelia know. If not, then stage is yours. Thank you.
Well, I do have something to present. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Vít. Thank you, Vahram, and guests. I'm glad to have an opportunity to address you today. I got into this business about a year and a half ago, and into the ideological business of what it means to have a free country much earlier, when I discovered Ayn Rand. Actually, right now I don't see my image. I see Vahram.
Actually, we can see the screen now. Yeah, we can. You share this. Theodor
I
Herzl
do not
diaries.
want you to see me. Can you view me so you can see, people can see me
Yes, we
talking?
can see you. We can see you,
Okay.
but I don't know why you can't see you. I don't know.
Okay.
We can see
Right.
you.
Right. As long as you see me, great. So I come at this problem from the direction of what would it take for a free country to exist. And there are two approaches. One approach to go into a country that already exists and try to change its politics, or start a new country. Now, can we change the politics in an existing country? Maybe if it is small, we can do this, like Montenegro. It's relatively small. There are 600,000 people who live there. Can we change it in Canada, where I live, or United States? It's just harder. And I don't think we can do it within our lifetime to the level that it needs to be. It's probably going to take 100 to 100 years for the ideas to permeate the public so that they will vote for a freer country. They will vote representatives who will elect a freer country, build a freer country. So then the other approach, as unlikely as it sounds, is to create a new country, because this, I think, can be done in my lifetime. And I can leave this as legacy to my son. So he will know that there is a free country somewhere out there on this planet, and then he may not want to live there, but he will know it's there. And he will be able to walk with straight shoulders. When he is taxed 40%, he will be able to walk with straight shoulders, knowing that there is an alternative. He can go if he wants to that country. Because right now there is no escape. Nowhere you go, you cannot escape. It's everywhere pretty much the same. You cannot escape what? You cannot escape statism. It's when the state decides how you should live. It doesn't merely protect your individual inalienable rights. It does much more. It tells you how you should do healthcare, is how you should educate your children. It does all that and much more. It tells you that you cannot take certain medical treatments because they haven't been approved yet, and just have to die because you cannot wait that long. So there needs to be a freer country. And in my view, the free country is laissez-faire capitalism. And that was explained by Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand, you all know, she wrote many books. There are 3 famous fiction books, but there's also a lot of non-fiction. Many people don't know this, but there is books that are non-fiction. And one of her books is called Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal. This is not what the libertarians want. It's not a thing where you do not have any government. There is a government, but it does absolutely minimal things. It does. It has the military, it has the court system, and has the police. And that's no more nor less. And the term minarchism is not a good term, because minarchism means it's a small government. Well, what does it exactly do? What does a small government do? Does it kill people only once a month, or does it kill people every weekend? Does it make it minimal if it just does it only once a month? No, this is the wrong criterion. It's the wrong name. The right name is laissez-faire capitalism. Then the second part of my presentation, he asks, well, how can you get land? And I looked at previous projects that libertarians did. This is the island of Minerva, and this is the uprising at the island of Vanuatu, which are the biggest attempts. These are the most well-funded attempts so far, and they failed. And other attempts are not succeeding. I wish them success. I do. I really do. But the book is not is still open on this. So my approach is to take a historical example from someone who has succeeded, because I ask, why should we take example from someone who failed? Let's take example from someone who succeeded. And who has succeeded? Well, I know there is a new country called Israel. It's not that old. There's a new country called Singapore. It's not that old. There are maybe a few other examples. But because I lived in Israel, it's kind of close to me, I thought I'm going to look at that place first. So I asked myself, well, how did Israel arise to be? And I heard of a name called Theodor Herzl. So I started looking to that. And as you know, Israel became independent in 1948, but Herzl died in 1904, 50 years before this. So first of all, he did not create the country. And many people do not look into that far back because it's been too long before. And the other interesting thing about Herzl is that he started this project in 1895, 9 years before he died. And at that age, he was only 35 years old. So a guy, look at yourself now. How old are you? You're probably younger than me. I'm 45, I'm going to be just in a month. So here's the guy who is 35-year-old. He doesn't have much money. He basically makes what a developer, a programmer makes today. He doesn't have some kind of insane connections. And he has the idea that he wants to create a new country where, in the most problematic area of the world, the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire controlled the area of Palestine. And he had the idea that he wants Palestine to become an independent country, the country of all the oppressed Jews. He was a Jew, but he didn't feel the oppression in his life. He didn't feel anti-Semitism in his life, maybe very little bit, very minor. He was in the western part of Europe, where anti-Semitism was much, much milder. The bad anti-Semitism was in the Eastern Europe, which of this he only knew by reading articles and so on. His job, he was a journalist. So I'm going to share my screen now so we have a little bit of a picture here. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see the picture of Herzl at the complete diaries of Theodor Herzl.
Okay, great. So he wrote a book called The Jewish State, where he summarizes his vision. But he did this very early, before he even really started the project. And if you want to see how he actually proceeded to do this, he has diaries. He kept a very detailed diary because he thought of himself as a novelist. He wanted to be a novelist. He never really was. But he thought that if his project fails, he will publish his diary. He used the entries in his diary as input for his novel. So when you read his diary, it reads like a novel. He really tried to make these diary entries really entertaining to read. There are 1,700 pages in this diary. It sounds like a lot, but it's easy to read because they're all in the form of letters or notes, but these notes are not dry. These notes read like a chapter in a romantic novel. So I highly recommend you to read the diaries. And I posted a link to these diaries. You can download it and put it on your Kindle or whatever you want. There are options how you would read it. What is the most interesting to me that he started when he was 35. He didn't have any money. He didn't have strong connections. And everything that he's famous for, why he is in the annals of history, he did it in just 9 years. And at the end of this process, just before he died, he received permission from England to settle land in Kenya. Not in Israel where he wanted, not in Palestine, but in Kenya. But he got something. The reason that wasn't pursued, because the Jews said, we are not going to move to Kenya. We want to live in Palestine for religious reasons. And I'm not religious. I'm an atheist. So if I was in that position back then, I would be against rejecting moving to Kenya. But the thing is that he succeeded without dropping a drop of blood. And if you read his diaries, you will learn how he did it, how he created his initial connections. In about a year, he started speaking to, maybe not heads of state, but maybe one handshake or two handshakes away from the heads of state. So he was pretty high up there without being an aristocrat. He was a nobody, really. He didn't have any right to speak to these people. And by right, I mean, not a moral right, but just the way the world worked then. And he also went to Palestine, actually not to Palestine, to Turkey, to speak to the Sultan of Turkey, of Ottoman Empire. I think it was 6 times. And this is not a very easy situation. This is not a Western world, a Western understanding world. This is a world where bribing is considered the norm, not something to fight, but actually it was considered polite to bribe your way to get through one gate to the next gate. So this was a very difficult project, and it could be argued that he died this early because it was very nerve-wracking. He died out of illness. But
Boris, sorry, could you just sum up, because we are out of time,
yeah,
just 10
yeah.
minutes.
So I sum up is to take two lessons from Herzl. One lesson: don't publicize this too early. He did not publicize because he didn't want a rise of anti-Semitism. If he just says everywhere Jews gonna leave your countries and move to another country. And the other thing is he advocated for mass immigration, not a trickle of some settlers. It's all or nothing, he argued. Either hundreds of thousands or million people can move in quickly and take control of this territory, or we're not going to do this at all. So this is, for all of the libertarian projects that are happening, this is not the project that, or the objective they are going after. The Prospera, for example, project is not trying to fight for the right for immigration of masses of people who want to live in freedom. And I say that libertarians look at the success of Theodor Herzl. Let's take example from somebody who succeeded, and also combine this with Ayn Rand advice how to have a perfect ideal society, laissez-faire capitalism, which she summarizes in her book, Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal. Read this book. And that's the summary, and the floor is yours, Vahram. Thank you.
Thank you, Boris. Thanks a lot for the presentation and for the advice. So yeah, I mean, so the first part of the webinar is done. So now is the questions and answers session. So we will have 16 minutes actually from now, because we started at 9:05 Armenia time, so we are going to finish 10:05, just exactly 1 hour. So please, I mean, anyone who has questions, please raise your hands and go ahead with the questions. But I would actually ask to be as short as possible, I mean, and as concrete as possible with the question. And please mention who you are, I mean, asking the question. By the way, you can also, I mean, ask questions not only to the speakers, but also to the guests that you know. So please, Joshua, please you. Ophelia, please unmute Joshua so he can, I mean, ask the question.
Hey, hello, Vahram. How are you? Thank you so much for this excellent opportunity here. This is great information, and territory is absolutely one of the most big priorities. My question is kind of open maybe to any of the speakers here. What is your thought on the pathway of initially focusing on business model that works its way into that? I think it was a good important point that a lot of people compromise to try to make progress. And so it's difficult to really make progress if you compromise too much in economic zones. But potentially acquiring land at large scale over time as an investment opportunity that is designed to then trigger sovereignty down the road.
Yeah, Ophelia, could you please unmute all speakers so that they can?
Yes, I've already unmuted them.
Yeah. Okay, please. Anyone who wants to answer this? Andy, Vít?
Well, we did the other, we did it. Okay, but please go ahead. I will go second.
All right. I do want to say something about this. The problem with previous approaches, the business approaches, is that you get some territory and you put a lot of work into it. You build buildings, you put your roots in there, and then it gets nationalized. So I personally don't want to do that. I mean, I cannot take this kind of chance. So because I live a short term. But if there is a business model that's kind of can move and take everything it placed in that territory, kind of move with itself to the next place, maybe more viable, and not start from square one at a new place, that's fine with me.
Okay, Vít?
Yeah, I think we have gone a long way in basically doing what was mentioned by others. I think we have gathered a large enough community of builders, and we have gathered quite a bit of international recognition already. And we haven't really, I never considered the free economic zone approach, even though even people from Prospera came to us and you should do the economic zone. No, we're going for full sovereignty. We're not shy about it. We're doing our best to make good relation with our neighbors and just building our justice system. And right now it's kind of cool because all these things are literally converging towards the anniversary where the constitution will be in place, the justice system will be in place. There'll be enough people living in Liberland as well. And all the court cases that we are running with Croatia will probably also get some sort of conclusion, which we don't really care what kind of conclusion it will be. We're always ready to appeal and push it to the higher instance. But the very important thing about this land is that it's not part of Croatia, that the Croatian constitution is very straightforward, that their laws only apply on the Croatian territory. So in order for them to be able to apply their jurisdiction inside of Liberland, they would first have to annex us. And if they decided to annex us, they're going to be the second one to occupy this territory. And from that on, we can also work basically as separatists annexed by another country. But we are not in that position anywhere close to it right now. We're in a great situation where Liberland is only claimed by Liberland government, no other entity. And from that, we're actually building a country.
Thank you, Vít. Thank you, Boris. Andy, please, you.
Certainly, I'm all in favor of using a business approach to acquire land. However, I also agree that if you do not have a strong sovereign power, recognized sovereign power as your partner, it is unlikely for you to win unless you engage in violating the non-aggression principle, to be quite blunt about it. That's not something that I'm interested in doing. What I will say is, who wants to be rugged? Who wants to build on quicksand? And that is certainly a concern that I understand some people have an aversion when it comes to buying property or investing in Prospera, for example. I don't want to pick on them. They're great people. They have a beautiful team. They're elegant people. I like them. But it's one of the reasons why I haven't purchased a condo there, is because, well, I already have property on the beach in Mexico. I already can do that. I can already live in paradise. Why do I need to have that additional risk? As Boris correctly stated, there is an expropriation risk. As they say in crypto, who wants to be rug pulled? Real fast, and then we'll, I suppose, move on to another questionnaire. At the end of the American Civil War, General U.S. Grant asked Robert E. Lee, they were talking shortly after the Appomattox courthouse surrender, where Lee gives Grant his sword, and and it came out like this. Lee said, I think the question we need to ask ourselves as former Confederates, as Southerners, is not why we lost, but why did you win? Why did you, the Union, why did you guys win? Why did you whoop us? And I think this is what Boris is onto, and he's 100% correct. Look at the winners of history, emulating Michael Oliver's Phoenix Foundation when he went out there on the Minerva Reef only to get blown away by the King of Tonga. He was close, but no cigar, whereas Theodore Herzl did succeed. So I do understand the distinction. Anyway, I'll yield back the balance of my time.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Andy. The next person who has a question, please. I have a question by myself, but if there is, let's see if there is no one else who wants to. Okay, I have a question to all speakers. Actually, yeah, I mean, as Andy rightfully mentioned, there are some 200 states now on Earth, and in the end of the day, I mean, if you look at the map, almost 99% of the area, or 99.9% of the area, dry area, land area, is busy already. I mean, it's taken, right? Boris mentioned about, I mean, that changing government option, right? I mean, changing the political establishment option. But how do you see, I mean, so are we going to face a nation state establishment failure, I mean, era, in order to have, I mean, these new countries? Or are we still going to the classical way, like, I mean, when there was a change of map, like, I mean, states, I mean, one state would be replaced by another state, one state will fail, and another state will come and take the land. So I'm trying to understand, I mean, give more details. I mean, well, we have a Liberland example now, but how could you, I mean, a bit, I mean, elaborate on this? I mean, how do you see on a larger scale? Because we are not talking about just one example. So just I'm talking about the virus, I mean, in a positive sense, of new countries. How do you see, can it happen? Will it be like a philosophical movement on earth? Like, I mean, Christianity, Islam, etc. They came and could shake the foundations of the world. Will we face this? Or it will be hard work, I mean, daily, I mean, work, so that you succeed in one case, and then in some 10 years you succeed in another case, and then after some 10 years you succeed in another case. So I just want to understand, I mean, this, I mean, time, this play with time. I mean, could you please, I mean, elaborate more on this? Who wants to get
Vít,
into
can you please go first right now, not me?
Okay. Well, can you please rephrase the question? Sorry, I had somebody massaging me over the phone right now, so apologize.
Yeah, Vít, basically it was about, I mean, are we going to see, I mean, a lot of new countries now, I mean, as a virus in positive sense, I mean, as a philosophical movement, or it will be just, I mean, one country, and then in some 10 years we'll get another new country on earth, and then after some 10 years another country. So I'm trying to understand whether we are going to have like a movement of new countries as a new political establishment. So what do you think?
Well, I think it's like, interestingly enough, and no offense to anybody, but I don't see really that many like serious movements towards establishing new country around the world. I would say there is Kurdistan that is working on itself, and Somaliland, which we signed agreement 5 years ago, and there is the whole network state movement. But within the network state, and I might be surprised, maybe sooner or later, but I right now I don't see any like serious nation building or country building motion that I see there. But I believe that once Liberland gets to be more firmly established, the boost to the rest of the community and to the country builders will be enormous. And of course, like, Liberland is in a way breaking the paradigm. We're kind of a spearhead in this whole movement. Yes, our legal situation is like much easier from this perspective than the situation of Israel. There was nobody living in Liberland. We didn't have, nobody was injured, and let me just knock on the wood, since establishment of Liberland, not that nobody died. We have a very similar immigration in terms of numbers like Israel had in early days. If you go to Tel Aviv, there is this beautiful monument that shows how many people moved to Israel in the early days, and how many were arrested by British just by coming there. We had already this 8 years of people being arrested behind us. It was also hundreds of people that kind of suffered in Croatian jail. And now Liberland is open for business, but we are still in not full control of our immigration. Croatia is trying to suppress especially immigration of non-Schengen individuals. But it's kind of very funny, by the way. Everybody is invited to come for 1 week to Liberland. We do it in the way that we send people first to police station, where they actually get the ban from Schengen and from Croatia for 30 to 90 days. But with that ban, they also get a permit to stay extra 7 days, in which they can enjoy Liberland and help us build the country. So the treatment by Croatia, I would say, is quite quite funny but also quite harmless at this stage. I would say it just helps us to strengthen our systems. And if you see some of these videos where Croatian police comes to steal bikes to Liberland, those are very good and funny examples of something which they are doing for us on the PR level. Instead of harming us, stealing a bike that costs 200 euro, they create a PR for us in hundreds, maybe thousands of euros. So this is the way we're doing things. We're very much Gandhi-like a nation, which we're not about violence at all, and that's where I would disagree with one of the previous speakers. I think you can really build a country without any violence, without violating non-aggression principle, and at the same time having a lot of fun with it, and that's what exactly we're planning to do this year.
Thank you, Vít. Andy?
Now I can talk.
Boris. Okay, Boris, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I put links in the chat to the 3 things that I would like you all to take a look. It's a link to Herzl's diaries, a link to Amazon book by Ayn Rand about capitalism. And if you do not have time to read the 1700-page diary about Herzl, you can listen to very good audio lectures about Herzl. Okay, so now to answer where to get this land and how to get this land, I think Vít is onto something, maybe not even realizing this, but when he put a flag between a contested land between Serbia and Croatia, there are now 2 parties who are interested in this land. And if, say, Croatia takes it, then Serbia says, no, you can't have it. If Serbia takes it, then Croatia says, you can't have it. And this way, if there will be a new state there, but it's a small state in that island, Gornja Siga, then the 2 countries de facto become the defenders of it, because none of the countries can come in. So I think this is the principle, the kind of approach that will work. We go to a somewhat conflicted state or a very conflicted area, not state, a geographic area that's conflicted. There are several interested parties, like Crimea, for example. There is a Russia who wants it, there's Turkey who wants it, there's Ukraine who wants it. And there are other places like this in the world, and there's a homework for you to find these places. And then we say, well, the solution is, rather than you trying to kill each other about this land, let's just make a new state there, and everyone's going to be happy. No one will be at each other's throats, but it will create a geopolitical environment in which we de facto get a free army, at least until the state becomes populated enough to have its own strong military. So that's my approach, the one that I'm taking to try. Now, about the Liberland project in that island, I think the island is too small. I don't know if there is a plan to enlarge the island or to take another nearby island or to take another area that is similar and as an extension, exclave, but I think it's too small. You need to have 2 million people. 2 million people to be taken seriously coming into this territory. Maybe not in 1 year, but eventually there should be a plan, because if you have less, it will be very hard to defend itself. It will be hard to actually get in the long run some kind of sovereignty. And I'll give you one example. You know, everybody in the world wants to give a state to Gaza. They cannot run themselves. We've seen that they cannot do it. They can't accomplish this task, but everybody in the world wants to give them a state. This is too big of a problem. It's too many people. Nobody wants to manage them, and they can't run themselves, but everyone says, we'll give you a state as long as you just try to manage it. This is a wrong approach, but I'm saying that you don't even have to ask for it. You're being given a state if you're in that situation. So we need to put yourself in this kind of situation that there's so many of us that the surrounding environment wants to give us a state. And that's what I think.
Boris, sorry, we are just short of time. We are adding some 4 minutes. Vito, okay, please. I mean, your comment, and then Andy, and then we will finish.
Yeah, so just to explain you a little bit better, Liberland is actually not contested by 2 countries. We are non-contested by 2 countries. So there are other territories that both countries claim, and they could not claim these other territories if they claimed Liberland. So we've got like the cleanest possible situation that is out there. And yes, we were kind of blessed that Croatia was protecting this territory and is still protecting this territory without us having to spend the money on it, without claiming it, which is kind of exciting. So 8 years they were protecting this territory from anybody else claiming it outside of us, but we didn't have to pay for it. So we have some internal depth to them for the future. And the more eager they were to protect Liberland against us, the more they were also protecting it against anybody else. So just to clarify that, like, Liberland is not claimed by any other country. It's completely against interest of Croatia to claim Liberland, because they will lose 10 times bigger territory on the Serbian side of the river if they ever claimed Liberland. So this is a very good situation in which we find ourselves in. But we need to speed up with the international diplomatic support, with the UN countries supporting us. That's why I'm flying to Argentina right now to get a little bit better grasp of the situation.
Thank you, Vít. Andy, you wanted to say something.
Well, certainly I was going to attempt to address your initial question insofar will we see a proliferation of new nation states emerge? And I suspect the answer to that is yes, beyond just the possibility of, for example, a Kurdistan or a Palestine emerging. Of course, Palestine does have an observer seat at the United Nations, but they are not a full member, as their entry would likely get vetoed by a certain country between Canada and Mexico that may not wish to admit them as currently constituted. And that is part of the current world order that we are living in, is that the United Nations is it. And if any one of the five on the Permanent Security Council say niet, then it's niet. You're not a member of the United Nations. And that's it. The end of the story. As it stands now, in February 29th, 2024, that may someday change. It is possible. I understand many are of the opinion that perhaps someday we will break free from the current nation state. We will break free from the so-called Westphalian nation state situation that humanity finds itself in. Maybe, maybe not. That is to be determined. We will find out. We're going to get to witness these chapters of history being written. Will network states, will some of them emerge, and may some of them obtain land and recognition from United Nation members? Perhaps, perhaps not. That is to be determined. I myself have not identified many credible entities and organizations that I think have a realistic shot at de jure recognition from an existing United Nations member state, where there's an exchange of ambassadors, where there's an invitation to establish an embassy. I have yet to see any institution, any company, any entity that I think is there yet. Subject to change. You never know. There could be a surprise. There could be a dark horse. You never know. This is an extraordinarily capital-intensive business industry to be in. It requires a tremendous amount of know-how, and you have to also you have to just keep your options open. So the short answer is to be continued. We don't know. But the beauty real fast about all of this is we're talking about, as Thomas Paine wrote, the opportunity to start the world over again. Tabula rasa, right? A clean slate. And that's why I think many people are so attracted to this movement, to this space, to this industry. It's the chance to start over fresh and clean with better institutions that are on your side and not against you, okay? That get out of the way. And I think that's what many of us are trying to work on. I yield back the balance of my time.
Thanks a lot, Andy. Thanks, everyone. This was a very wonderful, discussion, and I'm very happy. We could elaborate on some points. Wanted to inform you from our side that we also need to take into account the diasporas, which can also claim land. In the end of the day, and I'm talking also about the Armenian diaspora, and so we will have a chance to talk about all this. I mean, diaspora stuff and how to claim land based on diaspora power, but and also based on history. But I mean, that's for another meeting. Thanks again very much. I mean, to everyone for being here, and wait for for the next, please. Wait for the next webinar, which will be next month, about the network state and new countries, ideologies and identities. Thank you and goodbye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.